I stood at the iron gates in the pouring rain, holding my prison release papers in shaking hands. 4 years. 4 years of counting days, surviving, waiting for this moment. I pressed the intercom button with my thumb. My cheap state-issued clothes were soaked through, clinging to my skin. I just wanted a hot shower and my mother's arms around me. I wanted to hear her say everything would be okay. A security guard I'd never seen before walked out from the gatehouse. Young guy, maybe 25, with a confused expression. He looked at me like I was selling something door to door. "I'm Evelyn," I said, my voice cracking with exhaustion. "Tell my parents I'm home." His expression changed instantly. Not recognition, pity. Deep, uncomfortable pity. He pulled a laminated newspaper clipping from his jacket pocket and held it up. An obituary. My obituary. "Ma'am, you need to leave. The daughter Evelyn died of an overdose 4 years ago. The family is still grieving." My knees went weak. The paper fluttered in his hands. My face stared back at me from the clipping. Beloved daughter. Gone too soon. The date of death was the day after my sentencing. They didn't just abandon me in prison. They erased me from existence completely. My name is Evelyn Montgomery. Let me be absolutely clear about something. I wasn't a drug addict. I never touched drugs in my life. I was a 22-year-old accounting student at State University who made one terrible mistake. I trusted the wrong people. My own parents. 4 years ago, I stood in a courtroom wearing an orange jumpsuit that smelled like industrial detergent and fear. My father William gripped my shoulder, his expensive cologne making me feel sick. My mother Beatrice wept into a silk handkerchief that probably cost more than my court-appointed lawyer's entire suit. "Take the plea deal, Evie," my father whispered in my ear, his breath hot against my neck. "You'll do 18 months, maybe less with good behavior. We'll fix everything while you're gone. If we all go down, the family is ruined. The charity, the business, our reputation, everything we've built." My mother squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "We'll set up a trust fund for you. When you get out, we'll start fresh. All 3 of us together. This will just be a bad memory." I believed them. God, I was so incredibly stupid. I believed them because they were my parents. Because family is supposed to protect family, right? Because mothers don't lie to their daughters. So I pled guilty to embezzling $300,000 from their youth charity. Money I never touched. Money I never saw. Money they stole and funneled into offshore accounts while I balanced their books like a good daughter. 18 months turned into 4 years because of disciplinary issues, fights I didn't start, contraband planted in my cell that I didn't own. Every appeal mysteriously denied. Every letter I sent home returned unopened with "Return to Sender" stamped across my handwriting. Now I understood exactly why. Dead girls don't send letters. I stood at the gate in the rain, staring at that laminated obituary until my vision blurred with tears. Then I heard it. The smooth purr of an expensive engine. A black limousine pulled through the gates, heading toward the main house. I stepped directly into the driveway, waving my arms over my head like a crazy person. "Mom! Dad! It's me! I'm home!" The car slowed to a crawl. Through the tinted rear window, I saw them clearly. My father's sharp profile. My mother's perfect blonde hair, styled like always. They turned their heads. They looked directly at me, directly into my eyes. Our gazes met for 3 long seconds. I saw recognition flash across both their faces. They knew exactly who I was. Then my father said something to the driver, sharp and commanding. The car accelerated suddenly around me, splashing cold mud across my legs and chest. They saw me. They knew who I was standing in their driveway. And they drove away like I was nothing but a homeless stranger begging for change. I stood there in the rain until the tail lights disappeared around the curved driveway, until the rain mixed with my tears and I couldn't tell the difference anymore. My entire body shook, but not from cold. The security guard touched my elbow gently, apologetically. "Miss, I'm really sorry about this, but you need to go now. Please." I nodded slowly. I had exactly $40 in my pocket, no cell phone, no identification that wasn't stamped with the word felon in red letters, and a family that had declared me legally dead to hide their crimes from the world. But I wasn't dead. Not even close. And that was going to be their biggest mistake. The next morning, I found the town cemetery easily. It wasn't hard in a small town where everyone knew where the rich families buried their prestigious dead. The Montgomery family plot sat on a hill under ancient oak trees, surrounded by an ornate iron fence. My headstone was absolutely beautiful. Polished black marble with gold lettering that caught the morning sunlight. Fresh white roses in an expensive bronze vase. Someone was maintaining it regularly, keeping up perfect appearances for visitors. I knelt in the wet grass, reading my own epitaph with numb disbelief. Beloved daughter, bright soul, gone too soon to a better place. The date of death confirmed everything. They had declared me dead the exact day after my sentencing hearing. While I was being processed into the state penitentiary, getting my mugshot taken and my fingerprints recorded, they were planning my funeral service. While I was learning to sleep with one eye open and my back against the wall, they were accepting condolences from their wealthy friends. The genius of it hit me like a physical blow. The embezzlement scandal completely disappeared from public memory. Who questions grieving parents who tragically lost their troubled daughter to drug addiction? The shame of it, the tragedy of a young life wasted, it explained everything perfectly. They probably gained more donations from sympathy than they ever stole. I wanted to scream until my throat bled. Instead, I laughed. It came out broken, manic, echoing across the empty cemetery. A police cruiser pulled up on the road behind me. The officer climbed out slowly, hand resting on his belt. "Ma'am, I received a call about a trespasser disturbing a grave site. My own parents called the police on me. At my own fake grave." I showed the officer my prison release papers with trembling hands. His expression shifted rapidly from suspicion to confusion to pure disgust as he read the details carefully. He looked at the headstone, then back at the papers, then at my face. "This grave, this is you? You're Evelyn Montgomery? Apparently I died 4 years ago. Nobody told me about it though." He rubbed his weathered face with both hands, clearly struggling with what to do. "Look, I can't legally arrest you for visiting a public cemetery. But this family has serious money and deep connections in this town. Judges, lawyers, politicians. If they called me once, they'll call again. They'll find a reason to lock you up. My advice? Leave town today. I don't have anywhere to go. No money, no friends, nothing." He sighed heavily, pulled out his worn leather wallet, and handed me 2 $20 bills. "Greyhound bus station is 3 blocks that way. Get on whatever bus is leaving next. Go somewhere far away. Start over somewhere they can't find you and hurt you again." I took the money, folding it carefully. Not because I was leaving forever. Because I needed to survive long enough to come back stronger. That night, I boarded a Greyhound bus heading west toward nothing and everything. I watched my hometown disappear in the rear window, getting smaller and smaller. The place where I was born, raised, educated, destroyed, buried, and erased. I made a solemn promise to myself in that moment, sitting in that uncomfortable bus seat. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg for justice. I wouldn't cry to people who didn't care. I would become someone they couldn't erase. Someone they'd regret underestimating. Someone dangerous. 15 long years passed like a brutal education in survival and revenge. I won't bore you with every painful detail of those years. Just know that I spent every single day becoming exactly what I needed to be. I changed my name legally in a county courthouse. Evelyn Montgomery died in that cemetery. Eva Cross was born on a Greyhound bus to nowhere. I worked 3 jobs simultaneously while finishing my accounting degree at a community college: waitress, gas station clerk, night janitor. Then I got my master's degree. Then my CPA certification. I studied forensic accounting the way soldiers study warfare, obsessively and completely. I got hired at a small firm that specialized in finding hidden assets in nasty divorce cases. Then a bigger firm handling corporate fraud. Then the biggest firm in the country. I specialized in one specific thing: finding money that people thought they'd hidden too cleverly. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Shell corporations in Delaware. Fake charities funneling money to criminals. I could trace money through a dozen countries and 100 shell companies. I was relentless, ruthless, and very, very expensive. By the time I turned 41 years old, I was a senior partner at Morrison & Associates, the most feared forensic accounting firm in the entire country. I wore custom designer suits. I lived alone in a downtown loft with floor-to-ceiling windows. I had money, power, respect, and a professional reputation that made wealthy criminals nervous. But every single night before bed, I checked the same Google alert on my phone: William and Beatrice Montgomery. I was waiting patiently. Preparing carefully. 15 years I waited for the right moment. Then finally one morning, the alert notification pinged on my phone during breakfast. The headline read in bold letters: Montgomery couple celebrates golden anniversary with charity gala event. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. 50 years of marriage. They were in their 70s now, still wealthy, still respected in society, still running their charitable foundation scam. Still destroying innocent lives for profit. I clicked through to the full article. Glossy professional photos showed my parents, older but still elegant and powerful, cutting a ribbon at their new Montgomery Youth Foundation headquarters building. The journalist praised their decades of tireless philanthropy despite the tragic loss of their only daughter 20 years ago. I scanned the board members listed in the photo caption. Then my blood went ice cold. Mia Montgomery. Position: treasurer. Age: 22 years old. I pulled up her photo with shaking hands. She looked exactly like me at that age. Dark hair, serious brown eyes, probably naturally good with numbers. My niece. My brother David's daughter. They were doing it again. The exact same scam, the exact same organizational structure, targeting the exact same age. History repeating itself like a nightmare. But this time, I had the power to stop it. This time, I knew what was coming. I opened my case management software and created a new file labeled Montgomery Takedown. It was finally time to go home and finish this. I studied their public tax filings obsessively for 3 days straight, barely sleeping. The pattern was glaringly obvious once you knew exactly what to look for. The Montgomery Youth Foundation took in millions annually in donations from wealthy donors. Most of that money went to vague, operating expenses, and consulting fees, paid to various shell companies. Companies registered in Delaware with no physical address, no employees, no actual business. I traced the shell companies backward through layers of corporate paperwork. They all eventually led to a complex web of offshore accounts in countries with strict banking privacy laws. And every single transaction over $50,000 had Mia's digital signature authorization attached. She didn't know it yet, but she was already completely set up to take the fall. Just like I was. The Golden Anniversary Gala was scheduled in exactly 6 weeks. That's when they'd make their final move. Either Mia would discover the fraud and threaten to report them, or an anonymous tip would alert the authorities first. Either way, she'd be arrested for embezzlement, and my parents would play the devastated victims again. Tragic history repeating in their cursed family. Unless I stopped it from happening this time. I couldn't just call the police with my evidence. My parents had judges, police chiefs, and prosecutors at their dinner parties. I needed undeniable proof presented publicly in a way they couldn't bury or explain away. I needed to attend that gala myself. Confront them in person. Expose them in front of everyone. My assistant knocked on my office door nervously. Miss Cross? You wanted the background research on the Montgomery Foundation? Yes. Send them an official letter from Morrison and Associates. We'd like to purchase a platinum donor table at their anniversary gala. Corporate donor, completely anonymous. Whatever it costs. She nodded and left. This was really happening. 3 weeks later, my RSVP was enthusiastically accepted. The invitation arrived at my office in a cream-colored envelope with real gold leaf edges. Expensive cardstock, embossed lettering, the works. The venue address made my stomach flip violently. The Montgomery Estate. My childhood home where I grew up. I booked a hotel room under my corporate name and drove back to my hometown for the first time in 15 years. The place had changed dramatically. Trendy coffee shops replaced old diners. Luxury condos stood where factories used to employ hundreds. Money had transformed everything. But the Montgomery Estate sat on its hill exactly as I remembered it. Same iron gates, same stone walls, same perfectly manicured gardens my mother used to obsess over. The windows blazed with light. People moved around inside, preparing for the party. I parked down the street and watched for hours. At 3 p.m., a young woman left through the side gate. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, carrying a laptop bag, shoulders hunched forward like she was carrying a physical weight on her back. Mia. It had to be. I followed her carefully to a coffee shop downtown. She ordered black coffee and sat alone in the corner booth, spreading papers across the entire table. Even from across the room, I could see her hands shaking as she highlighted sections of documents. I'd done exactly the same thing 20 years ago. Desperately trying to make numbers add up that were deliberately designed never to add up. I bought a coffee and approached her table casually. Mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is completely full. Mia looked up, startled out of her concentration. Oh, sure, go ahead. Up close, the family resemblance was even stronger. She had my grandmother's nose, my mother's eyes, my father's stubborn chin. She looked absolutely exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and bitten-down fingernails. I pretended to work on my phone while secretly watching her struggle with the papers spread everywhere. Finally, she dropped her highlighter and put her head in both hands, defeated. You okay? I asked gently, concerned. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Sorry, I'm just having work problems. I'm an accountant, actually. Maybe I can help somehow. She laughed bitterly. Unless you can magically explain how $2 million just disappeared from a registered charity account without any proper documentation, I really don't think anyone can help me at this point. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Check your vendor list carefully. Compare all the addresses to P.O. boxes in different states. Look for patterns in payment amounts, especially ones just under the reporting thresholds that require extra scrutiny. Her eyes widened in shock. How did you know to look for that specific thing? I've seen this exact scam before. Someone's deliberately setting you up to take the blame. Mia stared at me intensely, squinting like she was trying to place my face. Do I know you from somewhere? You look really familiar. Like my grandmother when she was younger. My heart stopped beating. I stood up quickly, grabbing my coffee. I just have one of those common faces. Good luck with those numbers. I left before she could ask anything else or look at me more closely. That night in my hotel room, I hacked, completely legally, using only public records and cross-referencing databases, into the Foundation's vendor payment system. It took 4 solid hours of work, but I found exactly what I expected. 17 different shell companies, all receiving regular payments just under $50,000 to avoid triggering automatic extra scrutiny from the IRS. All with P.O. boxes scattered across different states. All payments eventually flowing to 3 accounts in the Cayman Islands through a series of transfers. The accounts were registered to a holding company with a deliberately boring name, Montgomery Asset Management LLC. Owned entirely by my parents. Their names right there in the corporate filings. But every single transfer authorization document had Mia's forged signature on it. They'd been practicing her handwriting for months, building a comprehensive paper trail. When the authorities finally investigated, they'd find Mia's name on absolutely everything. I downloaded everything to an encrypted drive. Evidence that would stand up in any court. Evidence that would completely destroy them. But I needed more than evidence. I needed them to confess their crimes in front of witnesses they couldn't intimidate or bribe. I needed them at that anniversary party, surrounded by their wealthy friends and the press, thinking they were completely safe and untouchable. 2 days before the gala, I attended the donor walkthrough event at the estate. They offered guided tours to major sponsors as a thank you gesture. I wore oversized designer sunglasses and had my hair styled completely differently, playing the part of a corporate representative. Walking through those familiar halls felt like moving through a vivid memory. The grand marble staircase where I'd slid down the banister as a kid. The library where I'd studied late for my accounting exams. The formal dining room where they'd convinced me to take the plea deal. All my childhood photos had been removed from the walls. Large portraits of my parents covered every available space. It was like I'd never existed at all. I walked into my father's study. The door stood open. He was there at the window with his back turned, talking on his phone about expected returns and minimal risk exposure. He hung up and turned around. We stood 3 feet apart, face to face. "Can I help you with something?" he asked politely. I'd rehearsed this exact moment 1,000 times in my head. I kept my voice low, neutral, professional. Everything Evelyn wasn't. Eva Cross, representing the anonymous donor group. "Thank you so much for hosting us today." He smiled warmly, shaking my hand with a firm, confident grip. He looked right through me like I was a stranger. My own father didn't recognize his own daughter standing right in front of him. William Montgomery gave me the complete tour personally, bragging about the Foundation's global reach, the thousands of lives they'd supposedly changed. He called himself and my mother humble public servants. I wanted to vomit on his expensive shoes. "We do all of this for our daughter," he said seriously, gesturing to a portrait hanging in the hallway. A young woman in soft focus, face deliberately blurred beyond recognition. She struggled terribly with addiction. "We couldn't save her, but we can save others in her memory." "That's very noble of you both," I said, keeping my voice perfectly steady. "You're clearly a woman of real substance," he said, smiling at me with approval. "I can always tell. People like us understand duty, sacrifice, doing what's necessary." The irony burned in my chest like acid. He sacrificed me. His own daughter. And he'd do it again to Mia without a moment's hesitation. He walked me to the ballroom where the anniversary party would be held. Workers were setting up round tables, testing the lighting system, arranging elaborate flower displays. "This will be a night absolutely no one forgets," he said confidently. "I'm absolutely sure it will be," I replied. As I was leaving the estate, I passed a thin man working in the garden. He was cleaning leaves from the fountain. He looked up at me. David. My older brother. I barely recognized him. David looked absolutely terrible. He was 45 years old but looked closer to 60. His hands shook visibly as he cleaned debris from the fountain. He was drunk or severely hungover, probably both. I shouldn't have stopped to talk. But I couldn't help myself. "Excuse me, are you the gardener here?" I asked. He laughed bitterly. "I'm the family disappointment. They let me live in the old pool house and do odd jobs around the property. Keeps me close enough that I don't embarrass them in public." That sounds really rough. I'm sorry. Could be worse, I guess. He sat down on the edge of the fountain, looking defeated. I had a sister once. Younger sister. She was the genuinely smart one in the family. I always thought she'd do something amazing with her life, you know? But she killed herself. Drugs. I think about her every single day. My throat closed up completely. I couldn't breathe. "I'm so sorry for your loss," I managed to whisper. "My parents won't even let me talk about her anymore. They act like she never existed at all. Like even mentioning her name is disrespectful to her memory." He wiped his eyes roughly. "But she was real. She was my best friend growing up. And they just erased her completely from history." I gently touched his shoulder. "She sounds like she was very lucky to have a brother who loved her so much." He looked up at me with red eyes. "You're nice. Most of Mom and Dad's rich friends are absolutely terrible people." I left quickly before I started crying and gave myself away completely. The night before the gala, I contacted Marcus, an old friend who did AV and sound work for high-end events across the city. I paid him $5,000 in cash to let me sync my smartphone to the main ballroom projector system. "I'm giving a surprise speech for the anniversary couple," I explained carefully. "Very sentimental and personal. I want to control the slideshow presentation myself from my phone." He pocketed the money without questions. "Your phone will override the entire system. Just press the button on your screen when you're ready." I spent that entire night preparing my presentation. Not photos of happy family memories or wedding pictures. Screenshots of illegal bank transfers. Copies of forged signatures compared to real ones. My official death certificate placed right next to my prison release papers. Every single piece of evidence, organized chronologically like the prosecutor's case against them that I wished had existed 20 years ago. I also prepared myself physically. I got my hair professionally styled exactly like I wore it at 22. Long, dark, perfectly straight. I bought a red designer dress, the color of war, of blood, of revolution. I looked in the mirror. Eva Cross, the respected forensic accountant. Evelyn Montgomery, the murdered daughter. Tomorrow, I'd be both people at once. The night of the gala finally arrived. I drove to the estate at sunset, watching luxury cars fill the circular driveway like a parade. Ferraris, Bentleys, a Rolls-Royce. Old money and new money mixing together under crystal chandeliers. Press photographers lined the entrance walkway. Local news crews covered the event like it was a royal wedding. My parents were that important, that respected in this community. I stepped out of my car in that red dress. Camera flashes went off everywhere, but I wasn't famous enough to matter to them. Just another wealthy stranger in designer clothes. I entered the ballroom. It was suffocatingly beautiful. Massive ice sculptures, champagne towers, a 12-piece orchestra playing classical music. 500 people in designer gowns and perfectly tailored suits, laughing, networking, pretending to care about charity work. I took a crystal glass of champagne from a passing waiter and circulated around the room, listening carefully to conversations. The Montgomerys are absolute saints. After what happened to their poor daughter, they turned their pain into purpose. I heard they're personally donating another $1 million tonight. Every single word was a complete lie. Every compliment made me grip my champagne glass tighter. Then I saw them. My parents, holding court like royalty. I stayed near the back of the ballroom, watching my parents work the room like professionals. My father told stories, made important men laugh, made business deals over casual handshakes. My mother glided between groups like a graceful shark, kissing cheeks, accepting praise with false modesty. Then she saw me across the crowded room. Our eyes met. She stared, her practiced smile faltering slightly. She tilted her head, studying my face with confusion. Something registered in her expression. Not full recognition exactly, but a feeling. An echo of something she'd buried deep. She crossed the room directly toward me, moving through the crowd. My heart hammered against my ribs. I lifted my chin, held her gaze steadily. "Have we met before?" she asked, standing too close, invading my personal space like she used to when she wanted to intimidate me as a teenager. "You have very familiar eyes." "I have a common face, I'm told." I smiled politely. "Eva Cross. I represent the anonymous donor group that purchased the platinum table." "Ah yes, very generous of your company." She relaxed slightly, but kept watching me carefully. "You know, we started this entire foundation after losing our daughter Evelyn. Have you personally experienced that kind of devastating loss, Miss Cross?" "More than you could possibly imagine," I replied honestly. Beatrice sipped her champagne delicately, still studying my face like a puzzle. "Our daughter would have been about your age now. She had so much potential, but she made terrible choices." "What kind of choices?" I asked. "She stole from us. From the charity we built. The shame of it drove her to." She dabbed her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief. "We don't like to talk about it publicly." I leaned closer. "How do you manage the foundation finances now?" "It must be incredibly complicated with so many donors." Her expression shifted immediately, becoming defensive. "Oh, our granddaughter Mia handles all the messy financial details. She's very competent with numbers." There it was. The pin placed directly on Mia's back. Said clearly in front of a witness. "I'm sure she's excellent," I said. "Family business is always the most trustworthy, isn't it?" Beatrice smiled, satisfied she'd impressed me with their strong family values. She drifted away to charm other wealthy donors. I found Mia in the bathroom 10 minutes later, leaning against the marble sink, hyperventilating badly. The door was unlocked. I slipped inside quickly and locked it behind me. "You need to breathe slowly," I said calmly. Mia jumped, startled. "I'm fine, I just needed a minute." "You found the discrepancies." I stepped closer. "You followed my advice from the coffee shop, checked the vendors carefully. Now you know the truth about what's happening." She backed against the wall, tears streaming down her face. "The numbers don't match at all. Millions are missing. And all the transfer authorizations have my signature on them, but I swear I didn't approve any of them. I'm going to jail. They're going to say I stole from a charity started in my dead aunt's name." "You're not going to jail," I said firmly. "How can you possibly know that?" "Because I won't let them do it again." I unlocked the bathroom door. "During the speeches tonight, watch me carefully. Do exactly what I do when the time comes." "Who are you really?" she asked desperately. I looked at her for a long moment, seeing myself at 22. "I'm the ghost in the garden." I left her there, confused but slightly hopeful. The ballroom lights dimmed dramatically. The orchestra stopped playing mid-song. Everyone found their assigned seats. My parents walked to the stage at the front of the massive ballroom, spotlights making them glow like gods. William tapped the microphone. Thank you all for celebrating with us tonight. Thunderous applause. Cheers from the crowd. Some people actually stood up. 50 years ago, I married the absolute love of my life, he continued, pulling my mother close tenderly. Together we built a family, a successful business, a lasting legacy. Beatrice took the microphone from him. But our greatest joy was always our daughter Evelyn. Her voice broke perfectly, practiced emotion. We lost her 20 years ago to addiction and despair. This foundation is our way of saving children just like her. The crowd murmured sympathetically. Several women in the audience wiped their eyes with tissues. I felt nothing but cold, focused rage. Then suddenly, blue lights flashed through the tall windows. Sirens wailed outside. The crowd gasped, turning toward the entrance in confusion. Blue police lights flooded through the windows. Sirens grew louder. The crowd murmured nervously, looking around. Officers entered the ballroom through the main doors. My father looked genuinely confused. This wasn't part of his plan. They were supposed to call the police next week, after the party ended, with anonymous evidence against Mia. Someone was improvising, changing the timeline. An officer approached the stage purposefully. William's confusion transformed instantly into opportunity. He pointed dramatically at Mia, sitting frozen at a front table. Officers. Thank God you're here. His voice filled the entire room. We just discovered our own granddaughter has been stealing from the foundation. We've been quietly investigating, and we have proof. He was throwing her under the bus right now. In front of 500 witnesses. Improvising the entire frame-up because the police arrived early. The crowd turned on Mia instantly. Gasps, whispers, pointing fingers. An officer walked toward her. She stood up, panicking, looking at me desperately across the room. My USB drive wasn't connected yet. Marcus was blocked by security near the projection booth. Everything was falling apart. They were winning again. William's voice boomed through the expensive sound system. We are absolutely heartbroken. To be betrayed by family again. Please, officers, take her away immediately. Mia screamed, I didn't do anything. I swear. The officer reached for her arm. The crowd watched hungrily, desperate for scandal. My mother dabbed her eyes dramatically, playing the devastated grandmother perfectly. I couldn't wait for Marcus. I couldn't wait for perfect timing. I had to act now. I stepped out of the shadows at the back of the room. My voice cut through the chaos clearly. Let her go, William. The entire room went completely silent. The officer paused. My father froze at the microphone. I walked down the center aisle slowly, my heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. 500 faces turned toward me. She didn't steal the money, I said clearly. You did. Just like you did 20 years ago when you framed me. My mother screeched, security. This woman is drunk or crazy, she's. I'm not drunk, mother. I kept walking toward the stage. I'm not crazy either. I'm dead, remember? You killed me 20 years ago. Beatrice screeched louder, backing away from the microphone. Who are you? Someone remove her immediately. Security guards moved toward me from both sides, but I reached up calmly and pulled the pin from my hair. My hair fell loose around my shoulders, exactly like I wore it at 22 years old. Hello, mother. Hello, father. I stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at them. Surprise. I'm not actually dead. My father's face went completely gray. He gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Evelyn, someone whispered from the crowd. But she died. 20 years ago. Drug overdose. The recognition spread through the room like wildfire. Older guests who'd known me as a child saw it first, their faces showing shock. Then others, comparing my face to old memories, to portraits that used to hang in this house. "That's impossible," my mother breathed. "Is it?" I asked. "Or did you just declare me dead to hide your crimes?" Marcus finally broke through security at the back. The massive screen behind my parents flickered to life. The slideshow began. Not wedding photos or family memories. Bank records in large font. "This is today's transfer," I said, pointing at the screen. $2.5 million to a Cayman Islands account. Authorized by William Montgomery's biometric signature at 9 a.m. this morning. Not Mia's signature. Click. The next slide appeared. My death certificate placed right next to my prison release papers. "They told all of you I died of a drug overdose 20 years ago," I continued, my voice steady and clear. "The actual truth is, I was in a cell for a crime they committed. I took the fall because they promised to fix everything. Instead, they buried me and kept stealing." Click. Forged signatures compared side by side with Mia's real signature. Obviously, completely different. Tonight, they tried to do it to Mia. Frame her, arrest her, let her rot in prison while they stayed rich and respected. The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, chairs scraping loudly. The officer released Mia immediately, looking at my father with new understanding. My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Real tears this time, not performance. Tears of pure panic. My father tried to run. He stumbled off the stage, heading for the side exit. But he was 73 years old and drunk. He tripped over a sound cable. 2 officers caught him before he hit the floor. They pulled him up roughly, already reading him his rights loudly. "We didn't, it wasn't," my father's voice cracked pathetically. "We did it for the family. To protect the family name." "You destroyed the family," I said, walking onto the stage. "You destroyed me." My mother looked up at me, mascara running down her face. "Help us, Evelyn. Please. You're our daughter. You have to help us. I was your daughter." I stood over her. "You made me into something else. Something you couldn't control or erase or kill." The police handcuffed them both. The crowd watched in stunned silence as their beloved philanthropists were arrested in their own ballroom, at their own anniversary party. Mia ran to me, sobbing. "You saved me. You saved me from them." I hugged her tightly. "Your family. Real family protects each other. Always." David pushed through the crowd, staring at me like I was a hallucination or a ghost. "Evie? Is that really you? Are you real?" "It's me, David. I'm real. I'm alive." He wrapped his arms around both of us, crying openly. "I thought you were dead. God, I thought I'd lost you forever." "I'm here now," I whispered. "I'm home." The police led my parents out through the ballroom in handcuffs. Camera flashes exploded everywhere. The press had their real story now. Not a golden anniversary celebration. A golden fraud exposed. My mother looked back at me once as they walked her out. Not apologizing. Not begging. Just confused, like she genuinely couldn't understand how her perfect plan had failed so completely. My father kept his head down, already calculating his next move. They'd hire expensive lawyers, try to shift blame to others, drag this out for years in court. But I had evidence they couldn't bury. And I had 15 years of expertise finding hidden money. They'd stolen from hundreds of donors over decades. Each one a potential plaintiff, a potential witness against them. They were finished. I walked out the front door with Mia and David on either side of me. We passed through the iron gates where I'd been turned away 4 years ago. where I'd learned I was supposedly dead. But I wasn't dead. I was free. Finally, actually free for the first time in 20 years. Behind us, sirens wailed and voices shouted. The party was over. The lies were exposed. Justice, delayed by 2 decades, had finally arrived at the Montgomery estate. I got into my car and drove away from the estate slowly. I didn't look back at the house. Some ghosts get to rest in peace. Others get revenge first. I chose revenge. And it felt absolutely perfect.